We will now present the graduating class with their diplomas and commissions. As each graduate approaches the platform today, he or she is being presented a challenge coin by retired Commander James A. Sylvester, President of the Coast Guard Academy Alumni Association. The origin of the challenge coins are rooted in military tradition as a symbol of unity and as a means of identification. The coins are being presented today have the Academy seal on one side and the Class of 2014 crest on the other. The coins are a gift from the Coast Guard Academy's Parents Association in memory of all parents lost to members of the Class of 2014 who are not with us today to honor the graduation of their daughter or son. The degrees of Bachelor of Science will be presented by the Superintendent, Rear Admiral Sandra L. Stosz. Commissions as Ensign in the Coast Guard will be presented by the Commandant, Admiral Papp. The Commandant of Cadets, Captain Jim McCauley, will announce the names and the unit to which each new ensign will be assigned.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my deep personal honor to name each graduate, their academic honors, and their future assignment. Since its founding in 1876, the United States Coast Guard Academy has graduated leaders of character in service to our nation. Out of respect for each graduate, please hold all sounds of acknowledgement and applause until the last graduate has crossed the stage. At that time, you will give them the thunderous round of applause they so richly deserve. Joel Robert Amendola, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Campbell, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. His commission will be presented by his brother, Lieutenant Mark Amendola, U.S. Coast Guard. Katerina Teresa Anderson, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Sherman, San Diego, California. Meredith Marie Anderson, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Richard Etheridge, Miami, Florida. Daniela Jimena Andrade, graduating with honors, Ecuadorian Navy, Ecuador. Benjamin Nelson Arocho, graduating with high honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Elm, Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. Thomas Julian Ashley, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Weishi, Alameda, California. Ryan Robert Babb, graduating with high honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Venturous, St. Petersburg, Florida. Isaac Thomas Babcock, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Monroe, Kodiak, Alaska. Samuel Gareth Bacon, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Midget, Seattle, Washington. Ethan David Baisden, Student Engineer, Cutter Rush, Honolulu, Hawaii. Marin Elfrida Balke, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Midget, Seattle, Washington. Her commission will be presented by her brother, Lieutenant Junior Grade Derek Balke, U.S. Coast Guard. Elizabeth Ann Baumsteiger, Student Engineer, Cutter Laguerre, Portsmouth, Virginia. Dominic Peter Benedetto, Student Engineer, Cutter Berthoff, Alameda, California. John Deward Benedict, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Diligence, Wilmington, North Carolina. His commission will be presented by his sister, Second Lieutenant Elizabeth Benedict, United States Army. Kyle James Benson, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Tampa, Portsmouth, Virginia. Patrick Adrian Behringer, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Resolute, St. Petersburg, Florida. Samuel Thomas Birch, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Midget, Seattle, Washington. Abigail Laura Bishop, Student Engineer, Cutter Mellon, Seattle, Washington. Joseph Youngdo Bezeski, graduating with high honors, Prevention, Sector Puget Sound, Seattle, Washington. Emily Anna Bogdan, Flight Training, Pensacola, Florida. Her commission will be presented by her father, Commander David Bogdan, United States Navy retired, and by her sister, First Lieutenant Carolyn Bogdan, United States Air Force. Thomas James Bondurant, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Sequoia, Santa Rita, Guam. Eric James Bonomi, graduating with high honors, Flight Training, Pensacola, Florida. His commission will be presented by his father, Lieutenant Commander Bennett Bonomi, U.S. Coast Guard retired, and by his brother, Lieutenant Junior Grade Brian Bonomi, U.S. Coast Guard. Nathan Michael Borders, graduating with high honors. Response, Sector St. Petersburg, Florida. His commission will be presented by his father, Major Michael Borders, United States Army retired. Jerry Nelson Brown, graduating with honors. Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Sherman, San Diego, California. Larla Hope Brown, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Stratton, Alameda, California. Kumar Frederick Brunhard McBradney, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Decisive, Pascagoula, Mississippi. Michael Alex Caballero, graduating with high honors, Prevention, Sector New York, Staten Island, New York.
Happy birthday, Max!
Marlon Antonio Cameo, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Morgenthau, Honolulu, Hawaii. John Marshall Campbell, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Mobile Bay, Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. Kelly Ryan Campbell, graduating with high honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Robert Yared, Miami, Florida. Nicholas Paul Capuzzi, graduating with high honors, Prevention, Marine Safety Unit, Texas City, Texas. Stuart Bren Carley, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Forward, Portsmouth, Virginia. David Allen Carrier, Student Engineer, Cutter Decisive, Pascagoula, Mississippi. Laura Rafaela Carts, graduating with high honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Active, Port Angeles, Washington. Paulina Castillo, Flight Training, Pensacola, Florida. Daniel Charles Chase, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Morgenthau, Honolulu, Hawaii. His commission will be presented by his brother, Lieutenant Commander Douglas Chase, United States Navy, and by his brother, Captain Christopher Chase, United States Army. Matthew Robert Chevalier, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Mohawk, Key West, Florida. His commission will be presented by his brother, Lieutenant Junior Grade Joseph Chevalier, U.S. Coast Guard. Jamie Danielle Chiquan, graduating with honors. Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Campbell, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Kate Kennedy Compagnoni, graduating with honors. Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Berthoff, Alameda, California. Her commission will be presented by her father, Captain Barry Compagnoni, U.S. Coast Guard, retired. Austin Lee Condra, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Active, Port Angeles, Washington. Robert Russell Copeland II, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Monroe, Kodiak, Alaska. His commission will be presented by his grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Sorrell, United States Army, retired. Aaron Christopher Korn, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Diligence, Wilmington, North Carolina. Scott Michael Cool, Student Engineer, Cutter Escanaba, Boston, Massachusetts. Stephen Matthew Cresswell, Student Engineer, Cutter Stratton, Alameda, California. Margaret Berman DeMarlene, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Juniper, Newport, Rhode Island. Aaron James Davis, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Bear, Portsmouth, Virginia. Grant Andrew DeVisser, Student Engineer, Cutter Monroe, Kodiak, Alaska. Paul Richard Della Sola, graduating with high honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Cypress, Pensacola, Florida. Kelsey Marie DePorto, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Midget, Seattle, Washington. Jamin Delon Descartes, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Sherman, San Diego, California. Rachel Ann Deshane, Student Engineer, Cutter Thetis, Key West, Florida. Her commission will be presented by her father, Major Ronald Deshane, United States Army Reserve. John Mark Durker, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Dauntless, Galveston, Texas. William Stephen Dice, graduating with honors, Student Engineer, Cutter Forward, Portsmouth, Virginia. Philip Michael Driscoll, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Hollyhock, Port Huron, Michigan. Catherine Marie Durand, graduating with high honors, Flight Training, Pensacola, Florida. Khaled Alafi, graduating with honors, Tunisian Navy, Tunisia. Chelsea Caitlin Emmons, Student Engineer, Cutter Tahoma, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. John Matthew Epperly, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Mohawk, Key West, Florida. His commission will be presented by his father, Colonel John Epperly, United States Army Reserve. Kristen Barbara Euchler, Graduating with high honors, student engineer, Cutter Alex Haley, Kodiak, Alaska. Gary Paul Ezzo, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Boutwell, San Diego, California. Devin Marie Fellman, student engineer, Cutter Campbell, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Chantel Lynn Ferguson, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Sycamore, Cordova, Alaska. Joshua Samuel Fisher, graduating with honors, student engineer, Cutter Venturous, St. Petersburg, Florida. Juan Francisco Fitzpatrick, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Vigilant, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Elizabeth Jean Flint, student engineer, Cutter Vigilant, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Her commission will be presented by her brother, Lieutenant Michael Flint, U.S. Coast Guard. Gloria Rebecca Fox, flight training, Pensacola, Florida. Brandon Joshua Foy, student engineer, Cutter Hamilton, Charleston, South Carolina. Nicholas Michael Frederickson, graduating with honors, Deck Watch Officer, Cutter Seneca, Boston, Massachusetts.